Howdy folks, I'm Cerulean Cerium, curiously chasing celebratory cereal.
I'm Amber.
And here's more celebratory cereal for us to chase. Let's get started. Alright folks, our first letter on this Sunday morning special is titled, Am I a Jerk for Telling I'm a 23-year-old female, husband, a 23-year-old male, that I don't want to have the same gender roles in our marriage as his parents, a 48-year-old female and a 67-year-old male. Slightly confusing title. Feeling a little bit like a jerk here. Throw away so my husband doesn't see this. Some backstory. My husband James, a 23-year-old male, and I, a 23-year-old female, are newlyweds. I adore James and am so happy to be his wife. James and I dated all throughout college, but both of us went to school far from our hometowns, so it took me a while to get to know his parents, a 48-year-old female and a 67-year-old male. They're very sweet people. As you may have noticed, there is a large gap between my mother-in-law and father-in-law. Long story short, they got married when she was 21 and he was 40 after dating for a few years. I know it's not great, but not the point of the story. For the first 14 years or so of their marriage, my mother-in-law stayed home taking care of James and his 3 younger siblings, while father-in-law worked as a pastor. About 10 years ago, mother-in-law took a job as a school teacher and started working very long hours, about 70 to 80 hours a week during the school year. She still does this to this day. This brings us to last night, when James and I were discussing a possible career change for me. I currently work as an assistant, but would love to pivot to a data science field, which is more related to my college degree. James, who works as an assistant for the local government, mentioned how he wanted us to follow a model like his parents did growing up. I stopped working when I have kids and start again when they're a little older. He says that I could keep working full-time and providing for us, that I would handle all the household tasks and children as well. I was taken aback by this, as James hasn't mentioned anything like this before. I told him that what his parents did would not work for us, and that I didn't want to emulate them for a multitude of reasons, like I have a degree in a field that's far more lucrative than James. James is 23, not 40 like father-in-law when they got married, and thus does not have the financial means to provide for me currently. I like working. James and I have totally different skills than his parents. For example, I am more financially savvy, while James is a better cook. And most importantly, I've witnessed how, to this day, despite working 40 or 50 more hours a week than father-in-law, my mother-in-law still has to handle all of the household tasks, cooking, cleaning, kid-related things, etc. herself, because father-in-law doesn't want and never bothered to learn. I don't want that. James was upset with my response, saying that I was implying that father-in-law is lazy, and that I was disparaging their marriage. He thinks that this system worked well for them, so why wouldn't it work for us? He is still upset with me today. Meanwhile, I feel a little blindsided by the whole thing. I didn't mean to offend him, but this isn't the life that I thought I had agreed upon. Am I the jerk? Edit. Someone suggested that I add, we did discuss this before marriage. We both agreed that it made sense for both of us to work. He didn't want to be a stay-at-home dad. And I said that if I got pregnant way earlier than expected, I'm open to being a stay-at-home mom temporarily if that's our best option. All right, folks, what do you think?
Not the jerk, and if he really likes this arrangement so much, then he might as well be the stay-at-home parent. It's not insulting to say you don't want someone else's relationship.
Yeah.
What works for two people doesn't necessarily work for everyone else.
Yeah.
So you in no way insulted their marriage by saying you don't want it. But if this is such a sweet arrangement, then why doesn't he want to be the stay-at-home parent?
Well, on top of that, it already sounds like OP knows that she's going to be stuck with all of the childcare duties. And I think that this way that her husband approached this was terribly dishonest. If he agreed to both of them working before marriage, then you don't get to change the terms of that contract, right?
Right. It was like he waited until he had her trapped, and then he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I want you to do all the housework and all the child rearing.
Yeah. So I really do feel like this was not good of him to do this. Like, this was pulling the rug out from under OP, and now she's feeling like she's the person in the wrong here, even though she shouldn't feel like that at all.
Yeah, like she has done absolutely nothing wrong. She has been transparent the entire process. I don't think OP has done anything wrong, and I think she needs to have a serious conversation with him.
Yeah.
If he continues along this train of thought, it doesn't bode well for their relationship. It may be worth considering annulment or divorce if it's been long enough.
Well, I mean, I think a good place to start would be marriage counseling, right? And so that they can sit down and try to understand and come to understanding why he's changed his opinion on this, and then with a third party maybe help work through this. Because one, there isn't anything wrong with traditional family roles where you have one person stay home and then one person go and work, right? I mean, that can actually work out really well in some households because childcare can be so expensive, right? And then doing other duties around the house are very important. Like, it's good to have a clean house for kids to live in. It's good to have home cooked meals, right? There's nothing wrong with those types of things. But what's wrong in this situation is that they didn't agree to have that structure, and they need to figure out where to go from here. And if that's divorce, then I mean, that might be where it goes. If this is like, he absolutely wants this structure, she absolutely doesn't, that's an incompatibility. They're not going to be able to work together as a team in that case. They have competing interests.
Yeah, well, and if they were to try the marriage counseling route, like, I'm a little hesitant of that because, one, it feels like this may potentially be an idea he's had all along and he waited to spring on her. And if he's manipulative, like, that's not a good situation.
Yeah.
But if they do pursue that avenue, make sure to find a neutral person to mediate it and not like a pastoral counselor that his dad recommends.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that it needs to be a professional in their field and someone who has certifications in actual counseling and marriage counseling, right? For sure, I think that OP and her husband have a lot to talk about because it sounds like they are not on board with each other at all, despite having conversations before marriage.
Yeah, and so I'd say OP, like, you know what makes you happy and what doesn't. Stick to your guns. Do not let him coerce you into agreeing to something. Do not let him guilt you and make you feel like a horrible partner because you don't want to do all the housework and all the child rearing.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think that since OP is the one who has the chance of having a better career, that it would make more sense for her to actually be the working parent and him to be the stay-at-home dad. And I think that would be, if this is really the structure that he wants, then that would probably actually make the most sense.
Yeah, and it might be worth, like, not like pushing him into it, but, interrogating that line of thought and be like, well, if you like this model so much, why don't you want to do what your mom does?
Yeah.
And, see if you can get to the bottom of why and if he's just gender roles, well, the man does this and the woman does that, like, that may be a fundamental incompatibility.
Yeah. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. And Bright C7567 says, yeah, you need to kick this in the butt right now. Huge red flags. Because yes, father-in-law is lazy, and the fact that your mother-in-law works 70 to 80 hours a week is ridiculous. Definitely not the jerk. But your father-in-law and your husband sure are. And OP replies, yes, she's a bit of a workaholic, but father-in-law doesn't step up at home and make up for it. And that's actually problematic, because if you should have both people working the same number of hours per week on both domestic and...
Right, and I think that's another big flaw with his plan, is it seems like even if someone's a stay-at-home spouse, like, that doesn't mean that they do all of the childcare and all of the housework. Because then they're working 24/7 while their partner gets plenty of breaks. There still needs to be contribution from the other partner.
All right, folks, and our next letter is an update from one that we had a little while ago. Update. Am I the jerk for defending my husband after my ex-husband abandoned our children? Now, we had this one a couple weeks ago, but what happened is OP apparently lost the password to their account, so I wouldn't have picked up on this update. But thanks to a kind person on Instagram, we were able to recover this. So real quick summary. So what happened with this story is that OP wasn't around, and OP's husband was supposed to pick up the kids after the 6 hours a week, and he couldn't do it because of a car issue, a mechanical issue. So the ex just basically dropped the kids off alone on their doorstep, and these are small children, like 4 and 6 or something like that, so not kids that can fend for themselves. So that's the update to this one. I immediately forgot the password to the account I posted on, but I am the OP. I hope the mods are okay with this. This happened a week ago. The post was made a few days after it happened. The post that I made on social media had kicked up quite the fuss, but most things have been sorted. For now. And my post is still up telling people what happened. My brother Pete was friends with my ex-husband before we even got together. He never really got involved in our relationship or our separation. He never has really been involved in my life beyond a good uncle. He's a nice guy, but we never have been that close. He's always been closer to my ex and now with my husband. When he found out what happened, that completely changed and he put himself right in the middle of it all. My brother was always the beta in his friendship with Dan, and I always suspected that he was scared of him. Well, not anymore. He called Dan and ordered him to meet him at Dan's parents, who he knows quite well. Dan was advised that bringing Sophie to this meeting wouldn't end well for him. I don't know exactly what was said, but the result of their conversation is that Dan's parents are going no contact with him. I don't like them. They've never liked me, but I've never doubted that they loved my kids and would protect them with their lives. Pete did tell me that Dan made it clear that he wouldn't break up with Sophie under any circumstances, even if it meant that he wouldn't be able to see his kids. Pete explained what happened to my in-laws, and the version of events that I posted was true, and went through the timeline and proof. Dan argued and complained and moaned until Dad told him to leave. I think that the fact that my brother, who is known for caring about beer, women, and sports, and nothing else, took this so seriously and got the grandparents to wake up. I spoke to them, and although their apology was barely worth hearing, we came to an understanding. I'm not going to allow any visits or contact between Dan and Sophie and my children going forward. Our agreement was informal, no courts, orders, or anything like that. If he wants to see them, then he will have to fight for it, which I know he won't. Those 6 hours a week are now going to be with his parents, on the condition that they don't allow Dan to be around the kids even once. And if they do, then they will be cut off from our lives. They were fine with this. Today came and they picked up the kids and spent the day with them. They called me after 5 hours and asked if they could bring them back an hour later than planned. They were having a lot of fun painting and the kids wanted to finish what they were doing. No problem, thanks for checking. I cannot stress enough how much I dislike them, but knowing that my kids are with people who want to be with them is such a good feeling. Dan didn't even text me if he was going to have the kids scheduled with him today. I spoke to a police officer yesterday about the message sent by Sophie. I'm going to gloss over some of the details for reasons, but they are moving forward with an investigation. There is a continued pattern of behavior, and it has been escalating. She's made some very specific threats, and over the weekend sent me a message that contained information that she would only know if she had followed me to where she was at the time. Luke had set up an external camera on our house, including making sure that our cars were covered by cameras at all times. Our neighbors know what happened last week, so they're going to keep a lookout for her as well. I feel awful that I left this person to be around my kids for almost a year. I let her be around them, but didn't know her well enough to spot that she was capable of behavior like this. I spoke to Olivia to ask what she thought of Sophie, and she said that she was grumpy and not fun, but nothing to indicate that she hurt them or anything. This reaction to the whole situation is just unhinged. Luke has been a star through all of this, and made sure the kids know that he loves spending time with them. Olivia calls him daddy anyways, but she knew that she was abandoned last week and he's shown her that he's here for her. He's always loved Max and has been amazing with him, but I know that he's found it difficult to connect. He's asking for advice, and I told him to just try things that he enjoys and see if Max engages. Well, Max spent 5 hours on Sunday with a golf putter in his hand, hitting a ball to the putting machine thing that Luke has in the garage, and apparently he's a natural. Luke now has it outside as Max has become more automatic in the garage and needs a bigger green. So I am now reevaluating my life. Living with one golf obsessive was barely manageable, 2 may be more than I can endure. I am currently typing this, looking at Olivia's painting of a birthday cake. Deranged threats aside, I'm happy with how things are right now. Alright folks, what do you think of this update?
I'm glad that it was mostly positive. I mean, the Sophie situation is still worrying, and I hope that that gets resolved. But I'm glad that it seems like the kids are faring well,
Yeah.
and yeah.
I mean, it's just really unfortunate that this whole Sophie situation devolved like it did. And I think that this is one of those things where OP couldn't have possibly known
Mm-hmm.
that Sophie was going to do something like this. And so I don't think OP should beat themselves up about this. It's you have to trust your ex to some degree when they have the children, right? And you can't just dictate how they'll live the lives.
So many people really don't show their true colors until it's a bad situation, and so like it's not like you can always tell.
Yeah. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I actually got some coffee here, but you can guess what tea I had last night because I did have a tea.
Why did the zombie stay home from the party?
I can tell you exactly why the zombie stayed home from the party because the zombie was an introvert and didn't really want to go to the party anyways, and so they sat and read because they like developing their brains because zombies have a thing for brains.
I mean, I like the answer. He was dead tired.
He was dead tired. That would make sense too. And I had licorice spice, but I have coffee this morning. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy special Sunday. We made it to Sunday, although that means tomorrow's Monday. Amber's got a little frown. Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance, and please have it in the form of a brief news segment.
Tonight's top story: what works for one couple doesn't necessarily work for others. More at 11.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye.